Hello, my beautiful family, and welcome to No Coincidences podcast. I want to thank you all so much for being patient with us while we were having some technical difficulties, but I promise you that it is worth the wait. We have an amazing guest with us tonight. His name is Ron Murphy. He's an accomplished writer with a diverse body of work that includes short stories, poetry. He has a play along with his novella. So I do want to, of course, let you guys ask questions. Make sure you put the questions in all caps in the chat. I will be asking him the questions that I have curated, and then I'll ask your questions towards the end. Without further ado, let's go ahead and bring him in. Hello, Ron. How are
Hi there,
you?
Ron. I'm very good. Hey, and it was my fault. I apologize, guys. I'm not that very technologically advanced, so I apologize. But everything seems to be working pretty well right now. There's a little bit of lag, but hopefully that will clear up. Here in Western Pennsylvania, where I happen to be, it's been extremely clear. It's felt like spring. Today we're getting a front through, and there's supposed to be a very powerful snowstorm coming through in the
Oh,
next
wow.
couple days. So I think that might be adding a little bit of insult to injury as well.
Well, you know what? The name of this is No Coincidences
I
because we
know, I
believe there are
know.
no coincidences in life. We think everything happens for a reason here. And this delay just made sure that somebody who was driving home from work could get home in time to listen to us talk today.
I like that. I
um,
like that very much.
I do have a whole list of questions for you. And I want to let you know, I think that cold front is moving in everywhere right now because Texas, we were at like 91 yesterday and our high today was 67. So I feel your pain. I know I'm not getting the snow, but the weather is crazy. My
It
first
is.
question that I have for you is I know your work spans over multiple genres. It includes the short stories, the plays, the poetry, just like I just said when I was introducing you. How has your diverse background in writing shaped your approach to storytelling?
Oh, so that's a great question. And whenever I was in college, I deliberately took as many poetry classes that I really love art form of poetry, but it also allows you to expand what you're trying to say in a much more universal level, I feel. In my writings, especially whenever I deal with the paranormal, a lot of people have complimented me and say that I have a very romantic outlook on things like that, and I like that idea. I think that has to be a necessary romance because if you have that romance, you also have a passion. And whatever you're passionate about
Right.
is going to be able to come out of you some way that's coherent, right? So I want to take the things that I'm most excited about in life and pass it on and make that quality that I really love about life and pass it on to people so they can also find it just as thrilling as I do.
I love that. You mentioned your degree from when you went to college. I know your degree is in literature and you've studied medieval history. How have these academic experiences influenced your approach to writing your books?
Right? You can look at it through a multidisciplinary way. One of the things that I do like to take into consideration is psychology and sociology because it's a universal thing, right? So we
Right.
really don't know everyone's backgrounds. We don't know what kind of literature you may have been introduced before in the past. But what psychology allows us to do, especially if you come at from a very Jungian type of a perspective as I do, I believe in this collective unconscious, and I believe that we can, speak to people, speak to each other across time and space in universalities like symbols and different types of tropes. And so that's one of the reasons why I like to study so many different disciplines is because
Right.
with all those different disciplines, I can look through a telescope of whatever
I love that. And, you kind of touched a little bit right up my alley. Um, I do spirituality, and I love that you mentioned that we can speak to things through consciousness and our unconscious. Telepathy is one of those things that when you get to that frequency that you're able to do that, it's truly astounding. I have so many people come into my TikTok lives and they go, Christina, get out of my head. And I'm like, I didn't mean to. You just kind of shot it
Right.
to me.
Well, see, I'm glad that you brought that up because one of the things that I truly love to focus on is the idea of frequency and vibration as well. So I
Right.
think that, out there in the universe, there's this kind of, universal frequency, if you put the God frequency or what have you, depending upon what spirituality you want to address. But it's almost like that initial tuning fork, right? You hit that fork and the vibration goes out and it kind of keeps everything in sync. Now, we as human beings have decided that we are going to kind of step away from that. So the universal frequency is still out there, right? But we have
Mhm.
elected in whatever ways to step out of that frequency. So we are now, we look at ourselves very much as separate from the natural world instead of being a part of it, right? And
Right.
once we get into that position, once we look at the world as something that needs to be domesticated or something that needs to be controlled. And if we look out our
Mhm.
window and we see that that world out there is the other, then we have went down the wrong path in my perspective, right? We're all
Yeah.
part of this chain of being. And what happens is whenever we step out of that universal vibration, and not only that universal vibration, but that vibration that other people are putting out as well. Once we
Right.
step out of that, then we are no longer at ease, and that's whenever disease comes into play. Right? That is a very medieval perspective, but that is
Mhm.
definitely what's going on as well too. That we need to get back into harmony not only with that initial frequency, but the idea that you and I also have a frequency. And I can actually affect you. And this is very Buddhist whenever we talk about this, but I can affect the way I feel towards you and I feel towards other people just by, putting out that energy that I wish everyone goodwill, right? And that becomes almost like the stone in the pond. These ripples go out and it affects you and it affects everybody that comes in contact with you and it keeps on going and going. Now imagine with all the hate that is out there, with all the cynicism that's out there, if we would take all of that negative emotions and just for one day want to love our neighbor and want to do good for everybody, and if somebody cuts you off in traffic, think well upon them and thinking instead of thinking something negative, my dear, that could change the world. And I truly feel that that is, what all religions are really at the very heart of everything. It's the idea that we are not alone, that we are part of a much larger picture. And we are each other's brothers and sisters keepers for the way I look at the world.
I 100% agree with you on that. I'm sorry, my dog just came in the room
That's
and he
okay.
thinks he needs to be a part of this right now. I agree with what you're saying. And, one of the people who's watching right now, Lori, I'm going to pop her comment up here real quick. She said something that I completely agree with as well. She said, Christina, I've noticed that when I convene with those of my vibration level on live streams and in person, my channeling abilities through writing grow exponentially. The energy joins. And this is so true. All of our energies are entwined with each other. And the fact of the matter is that when you are around people who are on those higher levels, they help you to ascend to be able to be your best self. A lot of people say we go into our 5D or however they want to discuss it. But that's exactly what I did with the family that I'm creating right now. I myself and Kevin and Mary, who are the co-owners of Elevate Souls Productions, we first of all we named it ESP for a reason because hello, I'm me, but but we want to do that. We want to bring the collective together, and we want
That's
to
right.
let those high vibrations commence to be able to bring the best versions of ourselves from all over the world. Because when your light's shining here and your light's shining there and this person's shining over there, we all bring the vibration to the highest potential.
Without a doubt. So we all have a light inside of us, right? And
Yeah,
it's up to us whether we want to let it shine or we want to put it under a basket, right? But one small light, one candle light can chase away the darkness, right? And if we think
right,
about the things that Martin Luther King said, darkness cannot overcome darkness. Only light can do that. So, in order to progress, we cannot fight fire with fire. We are going to have to change the way we approach everything, and not only approach things, but the way we actually respond as well. That's a big thing because
right.
people can hate you for anything, right? People can hold grudges against you and all this other stuff. And I'm all about forgiveness because once you forgive somebody, you now have released their ownership over you, right?
Hmm.
Whatever somebody has done to you, and this is a difficult thing, right? I deal a lot with trauma, with teenagers that have experienced trauma. One of the things that seems counterintuitive is to approach that trauma knowing that it was done to you, that it was committed against you, and that it hurt you to a point that it has kind of, scarred the very fabric of who you are. And then
Right.
what I ask them to do is then forgive the person that did that. Now, I'm not saying that that person is now without blame or anything like that, but I'm saying
Exactly.
from their point of view is to say what you did to me was horrible and it was heinous, but that is not who I am, right? That is something that
Hmm.
was done to me that does not define who I am. And for
Exactly.
what I'm going to say then is that I am very sad that you perpetrated such things against me, but you don't have any kind of control over me, and I forgive you. Once the forgiveness happens, no matter what kind of darkness comes up against you, it disintegrates. It truly does. And I've had to do this in my life as well too. I've counseled in my life. I've worked in school districts in my life, and I have seen it very many times. I mean, it takes a lot of tears. It takes a lot of frustration. But whenever you get to that point, whatever kind of sins were committed against me no longer have any power over me because I forgive those sins.
Exactly.
Your life now has went above and beyond. It's a
Yes.
different level, right? And I think, yeah,
Yes.
that's the kind of things that I like to adopt in my approach to fighting all those evils that are out there in the world.
Right. I'm definitely going to address that, but I just want to pop this up real quick. I want to show you that one of our mutual friends is in here. We have a superstar, Lon
Lawn, I
Strickler,
love
saying, "Hey,
lawn.
Ron."
Exactly. I love lawn
He's
Strickler.
one of my, yes, he's one of the people that we've actually paired up with to do the network here. So I love him to death. But exactly what you're talking about. I love that you brought this conversation up because I just had this conversation with somebody last week. I have a 4-year old and I teach her to forgive because exactly what you just said, that forgiveness is to release that burden from yourself and know that that's their burden. And oh my goodness, the conversation that I had was because of the situation I went through in the beginning of the year. And the person was like, "You should not teach her to forgive that person. That person did something horrible to y'all." And I was like, "It's not about them. It's about me and it's about her and it's about our our frequencies, not about his frequency." And so the simple fact that we have people that harness that negativity and they don't understand, first of all, I always say the power of the tongue. And for Christians that go and delve into the Bible, it says your tongue has power. And it's true. Call it call it speaking something into existence, call it a curse, call it whatever you want to call it. But the simple fact of the matter is if you put negativity out, you're going to get negativity. And when you put positivity out, you're going to get positivity.
Mhm. Yeah, that's basically what karma is. You basically summed it up. That's absolutely it. Whatever you put out there is going to be returned to you. And I just prefer to put goodness out there and feelings of well-being and goodwill. Now, I in no means am a perfect person at all. I do get upset and everything, but I don't let things, again, like some of your listeners are doing, I don't let it define me. And I also do not let it
Right.
create my personality, right? I really much like
Exactly.
I really put a lot of work in who I am, right? So if you would have known me years ago, I would be a completely different person. The person that I am right now took a lot of mindfulness and soul searching and meditation and kind of what like weeding out the certain aspects of myself that I simply did not like, right? And now to get
Mhm.
to the point that I am and I feel confident about myself and everything, now I think we get to that kind of revelation and a bit of wisdom comes into play as well too, to the point that we can say, I made these mistakes. I went down this road. I went down this road basically so you don't have to. And let me kind
Right.
of tell you what I went through.
Exactly. And I noticed that some of your writings come from a psychological and emotional standpoint, right? I personally went to school to be a psychologist. I chose to not get a degree. I didn't want the state telling me how I can practice it. So
Mhm.
we call it holistic healing, right?
Right. Sort of. Oh no, I think that's the only healing way that you can have. And
Yes.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. One of the reasons why I'm not teaching anymore is because I didn't want to be dictated on what I needed to teach, right? You know,
Right.
once you get to a certain point, people, and by people I mean administrations, should think I trust this person enough. We hired him for a reason, right? We hired him for a reason, so allow him to do what he needs to do. But no, they have to put on all kinds of constraints and everything, and they don't allow people to freely think. The holistic approach is also the approach that I look at as well too, that we're not just what's illing us or what makes us happy. There's so much, we are part of an extended family. We are part of, a friend circle. We're a part of, where we live and what we do for a living. So in order to just to put a band-aid on one perspective of who we are as these very a myriad of different types of who we are, right? Different
Hmm.
situations of who we are, then we have to look at it holistically, or in the end we are going to miss out on the overall problem, right? So many people are putting
Exactly.
band-aids on gaping wounds, and also the pharmaceutical companies, so many people are throwing pills at you rather than just saying, you have it within you to change. You don't need any outside forces to do it.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. Because of situations that I've went through, I got to have I know that I've always been different. Like I've even known even since I was a child, but I actually had my spiritual awakening in 2004. And then it was kind of dimmed because of situations I went through. And then it was reignited in 2017. And that's when I actually started working on my psychological degree. And through going through my schooling and my spirituality at the same time, I found that when we align those two things, right, that's when we're able to make people whole. It's not about, well, you need medication, you need to pop a pill, you need to go. I'm going to tell you honestly, I went through some stuff where unfortunately I had a judge tell me that I had to take all medication that was prescribed by the VA. The VA decided they wanted me on 17 medications at one time. And unfortunately, that made me gain weight, which made me self-conscious, which made
Mhm.
me didn't want to go out in public. I didn't want to socialize. And then the medications were supposed to be keeping me from being depressed, but now I'm at home by myself. I'm depressed because I'm all alone and
Mhm.
going through all these things. And once I was out from under that judge's order, I was able to slowly take myself off of all of that medication. And here I am a year later, um, 45 pounds lighter, going out, experiencing life, meeting new people, like if you would have asked me a year ago, hey Christina, what do you think you're going to be doing in a year? I would have been like, I'm going to be a mom. Like, it's the same thing I'm doing right now, you know? But I would have never said I'm going to be doing a podcast or going on TikTok and influencing people. I would have never thought of myself as a social media influencer. And the simple fact that being able to get away from the societal norms of take a pill for everything and being able to delve in and truly go through those processes that you need to go through, I want our society to understand that that's where it's at, you know?
Absolutely beautifully stated. That's correct. So what happens is, and this happens from the indoctrination ever since a child goes to preschool, is they want everyone to act the same and work the same and know the same knowledge simply because they want a society that follows the status quo, right? And I'm all against that, right? Like I'm a rebel at heart.
Me
Um,
too.
I'm I'm a unique person, right? I'm a very unique person. So I have different labels too, right? I can be a dad, I can be an employee and all that kind of stuff, but that's not who I am, right? One of the worst things I think that happens, and this is just part of our society, is whenever we meet somebody, we say, "Hey, what do you do?" Because we really aren't interested in knowing about what they do for a living. We want to evaluate what how they are, right? We worry about money, we worry about status, what kind of car somebody drives, where they live. But you know what I think instead is, what poem makes you weep, or what song do you really get inspired by? We have to begin to live life as poetic creatures, right? We
Right.
are not 9 to 5 human beings, and we
Mm-mm.
weren't built that way, right?
Right.
We all have this natural romance in us, right?
Yes.
We want to grab life and drink it down, and all children want this, right? They dart around and they look at the world very curious, and they sit and look at sunsets, and they may have seen deer every single day of their life, but they're still in awe every time they see a deer. It's the little things that
Yeah.
happens. But even like if you look at the Judeo-Christian perspective, even Jesus says, the kingdom of God is made up of things like this, because
Mm-hmm.
in order to accept something that makes no sense whatsoever, a child
Right.
doesn't care about that, right? A child doesn't care about that. There's no skeptical children. They're wide-eyed and opened up to anything that's out there. And that's why I think the children are sacred. They
Right.
show us, they are a symbol of what we need to be. And
Mm-hmm.
it's sad because usually about fifth grade is whenever all that kind of enthusiasm goes out. But one of the reasons why the schools aren't very happy with me is because I never indoctrinated that out of my children. We still look for fairies when we go out on walks and on hikes, right? Because the world is much more than just the visible things that we see around us. And I'm reading these comments too. I'm
Yeah.
floored by how intelligent these folks are, right? They
Yes,
pull.
I love our family here. Look, I like to call my people my soul tribe because I really do feel that since I started this journey, I am finding my soul tribe, whether it's through the people on YouTube or TikTok, Facebook, wherever you're at. Like, I really feel like, they sometimes they see a brighter light in me than I see in myself, and they are just so drawn to me and they're so intelligent with their spirituality and within themselves. It's a wonderful thing.
Well, that's a perfect statement as well, too. They see something in you that you don't see, but guess what? That opens your eyes. And then once
Yes.
your eyes are open, then you can realize that that is indeed a part of who you are. And then you can
Yeah.
share that with others. Absolutely. We need this soul tribe, right? Like so many people. So I've been in bad relationships as well too, right? I've been
Right.
divorced and everything like that. And one of the reasons why I've not been perfect in those kind of things is because I failed to recognize the vibrations and the frequencies. So we have this frequency that we're putting out there, And so often we stoop to that lower level, right?
Right.
Because we don't want to be alone or physical attraction or whatever. We stoop to that lower level. And if we stoop far enough, then we become of that frequency, right? We line up with their
Mm-hmm.
frequency. But we are not made. Our dial was not set for that frequency. So sooner or later,
Right.
we're going to pop a spring, and it's going to take us back, and then we can objectively look at that and say, "What the hell was I doing? I
Yep.
must have been insane." But yes, so we so often don't look at our family as a soul tribe. We are
Right.
here again, like you said, no coincidence, here to form an everlasting relationship. We're not looking for one night stands. We're not looking for like physicality, right? All that kind of stuff
Right.
passes away, it fades away. What you need to do is find somebody that's going to be there for you throughout everything. So when we take our vows, in sickness and health, you need to find the person who's you as a person and matter. If you offer them nothing more than who you are right now, there's no other
Mm-hmm.
thing that you're going to offer them except, hey, this is me. This is have at it. Then you find the right person, right? Because I should not come into a relationship with preconceived notions or with any kind of thoughts about how you are going to make me happy, right? I
Right.
need to be a complete person to begin with, and then we will complement each other. You never find a person that's going to complete you. If you're looking for somebody like in one of those movies to say, he or she completes me, you have a lot of work to do because that
Yes.
person is not going to be able to complete you. And only go into a relationship whenever you think that I am at the point where I'm comfortable, guess what, of being alone. Once
Yep.
you go to a relationship and say, I want this person for other reasons than just occupying my time, because that's what you get a dog for, right? That's why you get a
Right.
dog. Yeah. So yeah, you want to find somebody that's going to be there for you through thick and thin, and also somebody that inspires you and makes you
Yes.
happy and all those other great things that we're looking for, right? That's what we need.
Right.
So a lot of times I talk to people, oh my goodness, I can't believe this relationship ended. And well, what did you do wrong? What you did is you went out there trying to find somebody that was going to make you happy. And in the end, guess
Mm-hmm.
what? Human beings are going to disappoint you, right?
Right.
The only thing that's not going to disappoint you at the end of the day is yourself. So I
That's
say
right.
be happy with yourself. And then once you're happy with yourself, then go out there and try to find that soul tribe to which you belong.
Yes. Exactly. And when you hit on that, it really does hit home for me because after I went through what I went through in 2017, I spent 6 years single. I was doing my shadow work, or for people who don't know what that is, I was doing my going through my traumas and going through my subconscious and figuring out what things triggered me and what I needed to work on for myself. I truly worked on 100% just becoming authentically who I love. I worked on being able to look in a mirror and going, Christina, you are beautiful. You are amazing. You are intelligent. You deserve the best and you give yourself the best, right? And when you get to that point, that's when you're ready to give of yourself to someone else. When your cup is overflowing, that's when you can spill into
That's
someone else's cup. And I
that's right.
decided about a year ago to go into a relationship. And unfortunately, that person was not anywhere near ready like I was, right? I was sitting there going, look, I have a whole table full of food. I can feed myself. I'm bringing you here because I want you here. And then once they got there, it was like, whoa, let's pull the reins back because you have not done your self work yet. And that's the most important thing because when we go into relationships, a lot of times you hear people say, oh, well, 50-50. No, a relationship should not be 50-50. It should be 100-100 because when I have that bad day where I'm only at 80%, then you can pick up that little bit for me. But I should not be only running at 50% every single day of this relationship. If I'm at 50%, we're both doing something wrong.
Again, brings tears to my eyes. You did a fantastic job of explaining that, and I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. That's perfect. So let's talk a little bit about shadow work, if we could, because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people see that as, oh, it's kind of witchy and stuff like that. But It's really not. So if you would look at the writings and the theories of Carl Jung, again, I'm a huge fan of Jung. I'm a big fan of this. But he said inside everybody, right? So in all of us there's a side that we don't show anybody else. It's that secret side where we put all of the things that worry us or scare us. This is where our fears and our sins live, right? So he says that everybody, all of us, have within us the shadow, right?
Yes.
And guess what? Inside that shadow is a mirror, and in that mirror we see our reflection.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want everybody to do. What I had to do as a human being, as a person, to get to where I am, is I had to go into places that are dark and recessed for a reason, simply because it makes us uncomfortable, and we have to confront it. And we have to, in order to overcome anything, we have to confront it, right? And we have to go there and say, this person did me wrong, or I failed at this particular aspect, or whatever. But you're facing your greatest fears, you're facing your temptations, you're facing the things that don't make you happy.
Exactly.
And once you confront that shadow, and then you get to see yourself plainly in the mirror. And then once you get to see that self in your mirror, then you're happy with it. Then you have no problem sharing who you see in that mirror with the rest of the world.
That's right. And I'm laughing because Sparky, he's part of my soul tribe, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
He says everything is my fault all the time. Well, technically, that's the way we have to face the shadow work, right? We have to look at it and say, okay, I might have had this happen for me. And Ron, something that I say on this channel, it's right there on my scroll bar. It says, it does not happen to you, it happens for you. So I always tell people, it might have happened for me, and a person might have done something, but I'm going to take responsibility for my actions. I'm going to face up to what I did, and I'm going to move forward through it. So,
right, because we don't live in the rearview mirror, do we? That's
no.
our past. Everything is straight out that windshield out front of us.
Exactly. The rear view is this big. The windshield is this big. Pay attention to what's in front.
So another thing that I confront as well too is people that are obsessed with their past. We have these people as well too, right? So
Yes.
they talk about past relationships, or whatever the case may be, because they have not overcome that particular stumbling block in which they encountered. And now you or me or whoever's in that relationship now are paying the penance for somebody else's sins, right?
Exactly.
That's unfair. That's unfair.
Yes.
Nobody should do that, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of people out there that have the mindset is that whenever they come into a relationship, they need to basically regurgitate everything that's happened, right? Now, for me, I am, and it's something that I'm working on. I'm particularly a jealous person, right? Like whenever I look at something, especially whenever I'm in a relationship, I want it to be all rainbows and butterflies, right? Your past does not define who I am. I really want to hear about it, but I'm becoming a little bit more open to the idea that I have that acknowledgement that past does not define me in any other way. And if I'm with somebody whose past is reflective of that, then that is something that, we can overcome together if that's going to be the thing. But, basically that is something that we have to work on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I kind of want to, let me see, I'm going to pull this comment up because it feeds right into what we're talking about. And I know where she's going with this. She says, it's from Lori. She says, and we all benefit from ridding ourselves of those with false, self-serving intentions, with the grizzled manner of taking advantage of us while looking for the next best thing to stroke one's ego. And Lori, I think Ron will agree with me on this. When we run into people like that, those are people who have not done their shadow work. They're not ready to face themselves. And you're right, they do live in ego at that point. And until you do that shadow work, you're not going to be able to get out of your ego.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And that's something that Freud would teach us as well, too. We have this idea of the ego and the super ego, right? In order to basically, okay, so there's a notion whenever it comes to love, and this could apply to any kind of relationship, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all in a relationship, whether it's romantic or not. So one of the theories is that it's called the poverty of love. We have to empty ourselves completely of all the trappings, because
Mhm.
at the at the very end, there is nothing to us except the personality that we have, right? That
Right.
person that lives inside of us. So let's not look at looks, let's not look at money, let's not look at anything except the person that you are, stripped down to absolutely nothing. Once you appear before another person in that form, and that other person still accepts you, then you know that this is not based upon superficiality, and then ego in a way has been shed, right? And I think
Right.
that's things that I like to look at as well too. Don't look at the person for what they offer in any other way than the person that they are.
Right. Um, Trina, I love you, sister. I'm so glad to see that you're opening up on here. She said, I used to not be jealous, but over the past three failed relationships, one of 6 years and one of 4 years, and then one of 16 years, I found myself feeling lots of different things that never existed before. So, Trina, I'm just going to say that is something that you have to dive deep, dive in, and pull yourself back out, because when you've went through that many relationships that have affected you, you're going to want to reestablish who you are, because as Ron said a little bit earlier in this, we get into these relationships and we end up on their frequency, right? And we have to bring
Mhm.
ourselves back to our own frequency when we get out of each of these relationships.
Right. And also the thing is, what are you jealous about particularly? So that's something that I'm working on, right? Are you jealous that there was another person in your partner's life? And if that is the case, the jealousy might not actually be coming from a negative place. There is positive emotions as well that are associated with these things as well.
Right.
Do you have a feeling that this person might be ingenuous, right? Because I think jealousy comes from this not knowing. There's this ambiguity there. So I think that we have to look at it that way. So if you're jealous, what is your reason for the jealousy? And then can you overcome that? Or is the other person that you're with, keep on reliving this to the point that it's impacting you in a negative way?
Right. You're so right. And Um, I actually have a question for you, because you're talking about like within our personalities and things of that nature. I have not gotten to read your new book, the what is it, The Lights in the Mist. Let me
Yes,
ask you,
yes,
when you
yes.
wrote that, did you because I feel like I know where it's going. Did you feel like you were writing about, I know it's about orbs and this stuff. Do you feel like you were writing about the things of spirituality that affect us as individuals?
Yeah, so everything that I write about has a spiritual undertone to it, because that's just who I am, right?
Right.
So whenever I write anything, there's always going to be it's going to be strained through sociology, psychology, literature, mythology, religion, because that's who I am. So whenever I talk about anything in the world of the paranormal, I always look at it as a symbol of a greater meaning. So what I look like to do too is identify archetypes. And how does
Hmm.
this archetype relate to humanity as a symbol? And once we get down to that very, very basic level, then we can define what these certain things mean to us in this particular culture, in this particular time in which we live. Because these things
Right.
have been out there forever, right? Whether we're talking about ghosts or things that go bump in the night, Bigfoot, werewolves, vampires, what have you. They have been out there. They're embroidered into our DNA, right? So they,
Hmm.
they need us as much as we need. It's a fear that we have, this fear of the unknown. So why? I mean, we can understand why they had it whenever people had to huddle around a campfire, 30,000 years ago. But why do we need these things now? Why do these things make sense? And what it shows us is that we're still very frightened of the other. We're frightened of things out there. But at the end of the day, we're so frightened of these things is because without the proper mindfulness, we can become those things.
I
Yeah,
love that. And you mentioned the fear of the unknown. When you're writing these books, do you give advice to people on how to face that fear of the unknown?
I do a lot of times. So a lot of times I say at the end of end of these kind of tells, you track down the monster, and it's like an episode of Scooby Doo. You pull off the mask, and it's a human being underneath that, right? So what I say is this: is that we all have the beast within us, and
Mm-hmm.
Nietzsche, the more you stare at the abyss, the more the abyss stares back at us, right? So we all have the beast in us ready to, rage. And it's up to us to not necessarily subdue it, but overcome it, because we are all, prone to that kind of bestial side to us. And it's our responsibility to understand that, yes, we're capable of this. And no, I'm not going to allow myself to be overcome by such things. So, absolutely. Yeah. I think that, one of the reasons why I read about the paranormal is because these things are very unsettling to me. They're very, very frightening. And I want to get
Right.
as close to what is frightening me so I can better understand it.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Um, Trying to think of how I want to word this next one. So, with your views on that, how do you how do you think the contemporary culture has been affected by the ever growing popularity of spirituality, paranormal, cryptids, all of this stuff?
Well, I think that has almost become oversaturated, especially in the cryptid and the paranormal world, because we see what happens on TV, and none of this happens in reality like this. Most of the times, whenever people have encounters, whenever they have experiences, it's very personal, and it actually shakes them up systemically, right? There's something that happened. They've had some sort of revelation, to the point that they have been singled out. Of all the people in the world, they've had this experience, right? So that's the way I look at it as well too. We The world of the paranormal is very subjective, and don't be taught on how to look at the world of the paranormal. Look at it and decipher it, and encounter it yourself. That's the conversation. Is you have to understand or accept or relate to the world around you, and don't let anybody else tell you, let anybody who claims they're an expert shape the way you look at the world around you.
Yes, I agree with that. And I'm my next question kind of goes right into that. I know that you challenge your readers to reconsider the perceptions or misinterpretations of things in the world a lot of time. What do you hope your readers take away from your explorations of different uh, phenomena and things in life?
Well, in all of my books, I write out and tell them, I say, thanks a lot for coming on along this journey, right? Because we're going to go on a tour. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be giving you information from a historical perspective, right? Into some theories that have been proposed by, psychologists and other people in different fields. But at the end, it's up to you, right? You have gathered all this information, and now at the end, the last chapter is not written and may never be written, because now the pen is in your hand, right? And I one of the best reviews I ever had over there on Amazon is I wrote a book about Bigfoot called Tracking the Wild, or On Wildman, Tracking Bigfoot Through History. And somebody wrote a 1-star review that's basically said, if I wanted to read a college textbook, I would have enrolled in a class, right? Very, very nice. Like, that was one of the best reviews I ever had, because I do want to look at it as not like, somebody saying, oh, I heard somebody knocking on trees or go through a litany of encounters. No, no, it's much, much deeper than that, right? And I want you to be involved in this. I want you to come along with me. Let's dive into this together. But at the end, I'm not telling you what to believe. The final thing is up to you.
I love that. And the fact that, um, you know, I know you were raised Northeast in Pennsylvania, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. And I know how big Bigfoot, Dogman, Mothman, cryptids, all this stuff. I know how big it is up there, and I love that you want to bring it up to that level. Instead, like you said, instead of, oh, I heard them knocking, or I found a tree uprooted and turned upside down, or whatever they're going to look at that day. You're like, look, let's really delve into this. Let's find what it is. I have a friend who likes to remote view, and he remote viewed a Bigfoot family one day, and he was like, they just don't like humans being mean to them. They just want us to interact with them. And they say their name is not even Bigfoot. And I was like, that's one way to go. Like, I love that you're looking into it. But I mean, I'm pretty sure he's probably right. They don't want us coming out with our pitchforks and our guns and going, hey, we're going to get you.
I agree. I agree. I agree. Because what happens in the world around us is once we uncover something, we tend to destroy it, right? I'm a huge believer in the Gaia theory. I think that the world is a living organism. And I believe that everything out there that harms us, there is an antidote out there somewhere in the world as well, too. But we have plowed over everything. We've basically of the world, right? So to find our synchronicity with the world, I should say, is a lot more challenging, right? All the wild places are gone, and it's hard to hear a frequency over noise and traffic. You can't even look at the stars anymore, right? So much light pollution. And I think that we're not only destroying the world around us, but we're destroying the experience for future generations as well. And you have a child and I have children, and that starts hurting me, because I want to see the same. I want my kids to have the same experiences that I had, and I want to even have greater experiences as well too. And so much about the natural world is about stewardship, because we really do have a responsibility. Like we talked about at the very beginning of the show, we are our brothers and sisters keepers, but we're also the gardeners of this great world that we have as well too. So we all have to take our place in this, because the good thing about a garden is this: we might not be around to enjoy the fruits of our labor, but another generation will gladly pick from all that right fruit that we planted and enjoy it in times to come. And that's really, I guess, really what we could say to anybody and that is, at the end of the day, that's what we are here for. Is we're here to make this life enjoyable, so that future generations are not negatively impacted by anything that we do today.
That is a beautiful thing that you just said. I love it. And, you know, it goes into my next question. I was going to ask, are there any like local legends that you heard as a child, or any personal experiences that you went through that brought you to come onto this journey of being metaphysical, paranormal, cryptid, all of these beautiful things that we like to delve into?
It was my mother. So you talk about soul tribes and everything. My mother was just a wonderful person, right? So she allowed me to see the world in a way that I try to instill in my children. The world is just so pervasive with beauty in every way, and it was not only pervasive with everything that's beautiful, but it also had things out there that lived among us that we also did not see, right? Things that lived on the periphery. Very early age, I was brought up with the idea that there were things out there that we simply did not know about, but they still existed, right? So what she imparted to me was the idea that magic still exists, and we have to believe in magic, because if we don't believe in magic, then miracles can't happen.
Yes. Oh my gosh. My mom and dad were very similar in that aspect. People call it that I grew up naive or sheltered or something like that. But even though we weren't well off, I always had experiences and I had my imagination and my parents made sure I had the best thing possible. And I try to do the same thing for my daughter now. So I think that that's really when we come to this level of frequency and vibration that we live on, that's something that we are able to pass down to these generations. And one thing that I do with my daughter, I tell her, I'm like, don't ever lose your imagination. If you want to draw something, you draw it. If you want to paint it, paint it. If you want to sing about it, sing about it. Like, express
Right.
yourself. Don't ever let society take that away from you.
So this is great. So your parents and my mom, they planted a garden for us, right? And
Mhm.
we feasted upon those things that grew in that garden. And now what we're able to do is take those seeds from that garden and pass them on. So my mother is still very much alive and well in this world, although she had passed away, 23 years ago, but she's still alive in everything that I do, and she's alive in my
Mhm.
children. I can hear her laughing in my kids' voices, and I can, see their eyes sparkle the same way that she did as well too. So that's important because, again, going back to that whole imagery of the garden, you know, we're still tending those gardens. They have not dried up, and the reason why they're there is because they were firmly planted. And guess what? You're taking care of that garden as well too, the same way as I am, and I'm going to bequeath that garden to my children, and hopefully they keep it going as well too, because how many generations in the future people can still be taking from that garden with the seeds that my mother had planted.
Yes. Yes, you are so right about that. We're coming close to the end of our hour, but I was wondering if you have just any of your own words of wisdom, words of advice, whatever you want to say to my audience to help them to grow and evolve through their journey.
Well, I would love to do this again sometime. I truly would. I
Yes.
would love to do this again, and let's go with a topic. I apologize again to your listeners because I'm not a technological guy whatsoever. I still write everything out on a piece of paper before I even start committing it to a computer. So I'm really that kind of backwards. But no, I think that we should. I talk a lot and I write a lot about fairies as well too. So if you ever want to do an hour on fairies, I would love to
Oh
be
my
able to
gosh,
do
my
that.
mom would love it.
All right.
She
Well,
wants to do a fairy garden right now. You'll be able to teach her all about the fairies and their culture so that she can learn what to do with her fairy garden.
do
Oh
that.
no. I think we have a little bit of a glitch going on, guys. Let's give him a second to see if it pops back in. I know he's got that storm going on over there. While we're waiting to see if his video comes back, I just want to go ahead and let our listeners know that if you want to get in touch with Ron, you can find him on Facebook. It's Ronald Murphy, and he just had a book release recently. It is called The Lights in the Mist, and I really hope you guys get a chance to sit down and read that book. I tried my best to get all the way through it, haven't made it there yet, but it is an amazing read. And I'm going to say right now, I hope you guys love fairies because he just mentioned that. And I'm like, yes, we are talking about fairies for a whole hour in our near future. um, I think we are going to end up going ahead and ending this because he is having internet issues. But I thank y'all so much for joining me today. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me, Christina at allwitchy.com. Oh, he popped back up here. We're going to get him back up
Hear
in
me?
here. Yep,
Yeah.
there we go. Now I can hear you. Let me go ahead
I
and just
just
finish
texted
getting
you. I
them all
said,
my
hey, we
information.
froze up.
Yeah, it froze
Yeah.
everything. But if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can email me, Christina at allwitchy.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and TikTok. My handler on all of those is at allwitchy. And then, Ron, I want you to finish telling us about what we're going to talk about on our next show with the fairies.
We're going to talk about fairies and that universal vibrancy, which, in my opinion, and things we'll talk about, is basically fairies are the manifestation of that universal frequency as manifested in the world itself.
I love it. I did tell them that they can find you on Facebook, Ronald Murphy. Is there anyone else that they can contact you if they have any questions or want to just find out about what you do with there every day?
Sure. So you can directly contact me at my email, Ronald L. Murphy Jr. at yahoo.com. So it's basically my full name, Ronald L. Murphy Jr. at yahoo.com. Or you can also, get my books on Amazon or with Small Town Monsters as well, too. So
Awesome. We appreciate having you so much here today, Ron. I am immensely grateful for you spending this time and giving space to me. I will definitely have you back on soon. To all of my family, I want you to remember nothing happens to you, it happens for you, and always lead with love. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Y'all have a great evening.